In the previous videos, you learned about the digital divide in citizen journalism. In this video, we'll start by defining both intellectual property and censorship, and then we'll talk about how these two aspects of journalism have changed with the digital revolution. First, let's talk about intellectual property. Intellectual property means making it illegal to copy the work of a writer, musician, or other creator. In the United States, there are many laws in place to protect people and their ideas. For example, when a musician writes and records a song, they copyright that song, meaning they get a government document that says they wrote and recorded that song and that no one else can create a song that sounds the same. The same goes for journalists. When a journalist writes an article, no one else can copy that article without using the journalist's name. As digital journalism becomes more popular, journalists face new challenges. For example, it's become easier and easier to simply copy and paste information from one site to the next. When a journalist copies entire sentences or paragraphs from another article and puts it in their article, it's called plagiarism. We talked a little bit about plagiarism in Unit 1. It relates to the principle of originality. Journalists must write their own stories and not copy and paste anything from other journalists. Not only is this against the law, but readers might lose trust in that journalist or news organization. Why read the copied work when you can read the original? Another challenge with the internet and intellectual property is that images are so easily shared on social media. Sometimes a citizen posts a picture of an event on their Facebook page or Twitter. That image can be easily copied and pasted into newspapers and shown on a news program. The question is, who owns that picture? Should the news organization tell people who took that picture? Should news organizations ask the person before taking that image from their social media site? These issues of intellectual property will continue to challenge news organizations as they work online more and more. The second challenge we'll discuss in this video is censorship. We talked about censorship in Unit 1 when we were learning about the history of journalism. Censorship, remember, is how governments control the media. Censorship works against freedom of the press. Censorship in digital journalism is an ever-changing challenge. For example, there are countries that often control what citizens can see on the internet. If the government doesn't like what people are reading or watching, they might block people from being able to see it. A recent example of this was in 2011 in the Middle East. Activists used social media to talk about their anger towards the government and organize their protests. Journalists used what they saw on social media as a source when researching their stories. Some countries completely shut the internet down in order to stop this type of political organization. This is a form of censorship. To summarize, as journalists start to use these new digital tools, they have new challenges to face. The question of intellectual property asks who owns information on the internet. The question of censorship asks who controls what we see on the internet. These questions are very important as we move away from traditional media sources like newspapers and television news. Next, read an article on the use of the internet in the Arab Spring in Egypt before moving on to Assessment 2.